Right, we have a session now where we want to highlight the award of the IWSC Old Vine Trophy. So the IWSC is the International Wine and Spirit Competition. I'm a committee judge for this competition, and Christelle Guibert, who's the CEO, actually makes her own old vine wine in the Loire, in the Muscadet. She is a really strong leader in sustainability in wine, and from the start she's been very supportive of the Old Vine Conference. So last year the IWSC launched an Old Vine Trophy, which is awarded to medal-winning wines that come through the IWSC competition, where those wines are from old vineyards. And the assessment, the award of the trophy, also considers the work of the producer in protecting old vines and spreading awareness of the importance of nurturing heritage vineyards. So last night at the IWSC Awards and Knees Up in Camden, the trophy was awarded for this year, and I'm actually going to hand over to one of our marvelous social supporters, Brad Horne. Hi, Brad.
Hiya. Hiya, how are you, Sarah?
Very well, thank you, my dear. You?
Very good, thank you so much. Yes, and one of the social ambassadors for the Old Vine Conference. Happy to be here to do this Q&A with David.
Fantastic. I should say, so David Moulton was from Cape Mentelle. Congratulations, David, on winning the Old Vine Trophy from the IWSC. I'm going to hand over to you and Brad, and you're going to have a chat about your work with Old Vines.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So thanks so much, guys, for having this 15-20-minute Q&A with David Moulton, Chief Winemaker and Viticulturist. Well done, David, and congratulations for winning the IWSC Old Vine Trophy. Wonderful accolade. I'm going to big you up for a moment. You were born in Busselton, 30 minutes from the wine region itself. So you are a true Western Australian, as I'd like to say.
Yes. So thanks, Brad. Thanks for having us along to the conference. Yeah, true West Australian. I've left a few times and worked elsewhere in the world, but the draw of the Margaret River region has always brought me back.
Absolutely. So talk to us about Cape Mentelle to start off with. Obviously, I know you've worked elsewhere in Australia and the Rhone, but talk to us about Cape Mentelle and the ethos behind it, because obviously the wine region was established in the 1970s and you guys were one of the founding five. But talk to us about Cape Mentelle and the ethos.
Yeah, so I mean, the first commercial plantings were 67 in Margaret River, and then the Honan family started in 1970. So David Honan, you know what, he took a risk. He was a bit of an explorer, a little bit of a rogue. He still is. And they thought they'd plant some vines. And then Dave took off to the USA to become a winemaker. So he was the first qualified winemaker in the region. And this day, he still drops in. I actually had him in my office 3 days ago for a meeting. So yeah, he's still part of the business, and we love it when he drops in. But yeah, it's a beautiful place to grow grapes. So absolutely, we are very lucky. So you only about 6,000 hectares. Yeah.
You are indeed, because it is a beautiful part of the world. If no one knows it, obviously we've come from one side of Australia, we've flown all the way back to the other side, and it's a big country. If no one knows, you're right in that bottom western corner.
Yes, yeah. So right down in the southwest corner between two capes, so Cape Naturalist and Cape Leeuwin, and bordered by the Indian Ocean on two sides and the Southern Ocean on one side.
So obviously when we talk about old vines, we also talk about some vines for over 100 years old, and obviously you guys as a growing region have only been just over 50 years. So obviously, and these vines, but obviously this vineyard we're going to talk about, and the vines have been there since the 70s. So talk just about the history of old vines in the region itself, because obviously a younger region, but obviously still passionate about these old vines.
Yeah. So predominantly Cabernet planted in the older vines. There was some Riesling planted back in the day that's no longer there. It's not a great region for Riesling. But look, between sort of some of the other early producers, your Vas Felix, your Leeuwin, Cape Mentelle, Mosswood, Cullens, we're all friends.
Yep.
You know, I spent a long time at Bass Felix. I'm still best mates with the chief viticulturist there. So I think what's unique about Margaret River, and tell me if I'm wrong, if anyone else is here from another region, but we all band together. We're a long way from any other wine region in Australia, and we band together. If someone's got a good idea, we share it, and we're all in it together. And two, given our very remote location, we are phylloxera free, which
Okay.
allows us to have a significant portion of our region on their own roots. So we're seeing a very true expression of the clonal material.
Well, that was going to lead to my next question, but you've almost answered it yourself. Being that far away and having that genetic material there in the ground and being on their own roots, what do you think that brings to the wines? Because obviously, as soon as I read a post that in 1983 you won the Jim Walker Trophy, and then this was a really big thing for a region, and then you went and won it again. So having this genetic material producing from its own rootstock, how do you think what it brings to the wine?
Yeah, I like to think that we're getting a really true example of, I mean, and we have the Horton's clone. We keep things rather simple in Western Australia. This clone came into the state through the Horton's winery, which Swan Valley established a long, long time ago, but we've taken some selective genetic material off this vineyard. It spread through the region, but that's because it was the only clone available at the time. So because of where we are, obviously we have to come through quarantine. We don't want to bring any new pests or diseases or phylloxera into our region. But look, we have sort of isolated what we think are some of the better vines within our genetic material at Cape Mentelle, and then we've 2017, we started establishing our own nursery on site, and we've taken some new clones as well because we want to see how those clones react in our soils with our climate before we make decisions for the future.
And I think Nick, in the last presentation, almost come to that because obviously you want to keep the clones that you've had in the region, but obviously having clone diversity with climate change and being able to use this nursery for the benefit for the future. And obviously this conference is all about looking to the future from the past. So for you, having that nursery must be an amazing tool for the future.
Yeah, it just allows us to really understand it. And like I said, in our own backyard. But look, I think I've been at Cape Mentelle nearly 10 years now, and I remember the first day I drove in to start, and you drive past some of our original vines, and I was actually quite daunted by the prospect of sort of going, well, I'm going to have to look after those things. And if I get it wrong, a lot of people within Margaret River and within Western Australia or Australia even have been through the doors at Cape Mentelle. And yes, we have been corporate owned in the past, but it always feels like a family run business to me. And everyone that has worked there has this very strong sense of empowerment or ownership over Cape Mentelle. So old vines are wonderful, but they do come with a little bit of pressure at times.
I've got a few more questions before I get the anyone else for the Q&A. So you spoke about cab. What other varietals do you have in the vineyards that are old? Is it mainly cab or is it a selection of other vines?
So yeah, we've got some Cabernet from the original plantings. We've also got some Shiraz, and we've got 1.3 hectare plot of Zinfandel.
Amazing.
So David Horne, studying in the US, fell in love with Zinfandel and brought some material home, and it's sort of become a cult wine at Cape Mentelle over the years. Difficult to grow, but easy to drink.
I love that. I want to go a bit regional now, David. Obviously, Old Vines in Margaret River. If you know that how many Old Vine vineyards there are. So obviously we've got the registry, and obviously people can put the vineyards in there, and hopefully people from Margaret River are doing the same. But how many Old Vine vineyards do you think there is in the region itself?
Look, obviously there's a significant portion. You've got your big names, so the founding five that everyone's aware of. Well, hopefully you are. Hopefully our marketing teams are doing their job. But then you've got, Claire Alt Striker, who took the trophy for the Cabernet at the International Wine and Spirits competition. They've got some beautiful old vine material. Vass Felix, obviously one of the early ones. Cullen's, one of the most famous wine brands from Margaret River. We're all preserving it, we're all maintaining it, but I guess our jobs are to look to the future and make sure that we are preserving those vines, but also we've got to set these businesses up for the next 50, 60, 80 years. So, it's a really exciting time.
I'm going to ask you about that, and you've almost answered the future for old vines in the region. Are you seeing people, not just yourself, not just kind of being more interested, and consumers as well? Are they asking you how old is this vine, and is this vineyard in this wine? Are you seeing more people in consumers and in the industry asking about old vines from Margaret River?
Yeah, I think it's there's an incredible opportunity. I think, and I discuss this often, that the best thing we can do for our heritage vines or our old vines within this region is to celebrate them. And the only way we can do that is to make a bloody excellent glass of wine for the consumer. And that will obviously provoke some conversation about where this material came from. But two, there's a big push for single vineyard sites. So wines that are expressions of that single vineyard site and some of the old vine material. And I think it's a really wonderful opportunity to truly showcase, our soil, our climate, and with vine material that has been there for a very long period of time.
Totally. I'm going to talk about the IWSC and obviously winning the trophy last night. Must be a huge accolade because for me, working and judging for the IWSC, the rigorous nature of any competition or judging. So for you to win it and for Western Australia and Cape Mentelle, how did it make you feel?
Look, I went to bed last night and knowing that Lloyd, our export sort of director, was attending on our behalf. I woke up at 4:30 this morning, and the first thing I did was roll over and check my phone and went, "Oh wow, oh wow!" So I couldn't get back to sleep. So actually, my boss is in Melbourne, and his boss is in Sydney. So I sent a couple of pictures of the trophy that Lloyd had sent me, and then I went, "Oh no, hang on, they're going to ring me," and I've got 3 young children, so best if they stay asleep. So I got the dog and I went for a walk around the town and spent 40 minutes on the phone call with some happy people, which is always wonderful.
Amazing. I'm going to dive into, because obviously you had the judging in situ in Margaret River as well, and having an international competition like the IWSC in the region, judging wines, that must have been a huge thing for all the producers for the region to get Masters of Wine journalists, trade experts in the region itself and judging there. That must be huge as well.
Yeah, look, we count ourselves very lucky for the IWSC to come across, and the judges were just wonderful. They were so engaged in the region, and I think they could really explain what they thought of our wines, and too where they thought we could improve or what we could do better, which was great. But I think their biggest takeaway was the fact that 3% of the Margaret River region is under vine. So we have 46% of our region that is actually remnant native Australian bush. So they were actually blown away by the trees, the birds, and the ocean, everything nearby. And I think I can't convey that sitting here on a computer, but if you come to Margaret River, it's absolutely a stunning place to live and a stunning place to grow grapes and make wine.
I totally agree. I was there many moons ago. I need to get myself back, but it is one of those places that never leaves you. It's the beauty, the natural beauty of the region. And you mentioned the bush, the flora and fauna. It really is. It's not all vineyards as you go to some regions, vineyard, vineyard, vineyard. It is mainly the native wildlife, which is amazing.
Yes, definitely. Look, I don't tell so many people because I do like it the way it is, but always happy to welcome visitors.
Thank you. David, thank you so much for your time. It was just a short, sharp get you because I know it's later in the evening there. Sarah's back. Sarah, thank you so much. Any questions from the people and Q&A, please drop them in quickly before we head off to France. I think we're going, Sarah.
We're about to head off to France. Just before we do, I actually have a question for David about the ungrafted element of your vineyard, because I've come across different perspectives on this, in that when I speak to lots of producers who are working with ungrafted vines, yourself, producers in Etna, Olivier Bourdais-Pez, who's coming up next, there is definitely a conviction, and not just a sentimental conviction, that they feel there is a dimension that is expressed in the wine from having, good, healthy, ungrafted vines. And of course, there's been this charity association set up by Loicum Pasque to have ungrafted vineyards recognized as a kind of agricultural heritage by UNESCO. So on the one hand, there's people saying these are something special. On the other hand, I'm aware that there are people who write about wine and wine science who say, oh, come on, you know, you're just being romantic. You know, there's no botanical, you know, plant physiology, you know, that should have any difference. So how do you characterize the difference that you feel, and do you have any insights onto what might be happening in the plant to make this difference?
And my wife will attest to this. I'm not a very romantic person. I'm a very science-based person, but wine is romance. So, you know, I think if you do have those convictions, be courageous with it and talk about it and be passionate about it. But in my role, the most important thing is what ends up in the bottle. So we do utilise some rootstocks, and we utilise some new clones that have come into our state. But the whole idea, and I say I'm not romantic, but I did once say to one of our winemakers, like, as a viticulturist, that's my main background, is my job is to provide the paints and your job is to craft the masterpiece. So by using rootstocks, by using vines that are on their own roots, you've got more shades of colour. So you can truly craft something, and it will probably reduce your risk to seasonal variation. Obviously, there's some impact to be worked on with climate change and more efficient rootstocks, but I think you can also work with that by building organic matter levels in your soil. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's no perfect recipe in any sense. But I'm a big fan of our Horton's clone, our Margaret River Cabernet. I believe we understand it as winemakers and viticulturists extremely well, and why not? Like, why not have such an incredible place in the world with a pretty unique clone and celebrate it?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, David. Congratulations. Thank you to IWSC. Thank you to Brad. Always a pleasure to have you